everyone, I'm Matt, and welcome to the Good Trouble Show. Today's guest has written stories for Vice, Rolling Stone, Wired, and the Daily Beast. Covering the political beat in Washington since 2006, he has been on fire, tracking down politicians and getting them on the record about the recent news on UAPs, otherwise known as UFOs. Please welcome journalist Matt Laslo. How are you, Matt?
Not bad. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back on our show. I'm glad we didn't scare you off.
I never get scared. I interview 535 lying, 535 statesmen and women.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's great. Well, then we're even more honored that you're coming on our show. And I mean, so I think what we had you on back in I think it was July. I'd have to go back and look, but man, I can't believe it's already September.
Right? Me neither. And here in DC, in the non-swamp swamp, it's been like 90 degrees this past week. So it feels like July.
So it's been pretty. So it's pretty swampy right now.
It is. It is. Thanks.
Now, so has it been? I understand everybody's on recess. Has it been just completely dead on Capitol Hill in D.C.? Is it like a ghost town, or what's it like during this time of the year, other than hot?
That's the funny thing. So even though this Congress, and this is something I looked up in reporting for Raw Story, and we triple checked it. My editor, Dave Leventhal, who came from Business Insider, was like, wait, is this number true? So it's 12 new laws. That's it. That President Biden has signed into law since January. 12.
That's it?
And one of them is commemorating, or is like a 250th anniversary commemorative coin for the Marines. And another one is renaming a VA hospital. So
wow.
That's all this Congress can like hang their hat on. Oh, that, and not defaulting on the nation's finances.
Important things like that.
They created, but then they give themselves the entire month of August off. And so this past week, the Senate was back in session, but not the House. The House, they come back in on Tuesday. And the Senate only is working 3-day work weeks this year. Like,
wow, must
shocked.
be nice.
That's why I'm shocked that there isn't bipartisan outrage at both parties. Like, you guys were just elected. You're all just running your re-election campaign for 2024. Do work. You were elected to do something.
Right.
And I think the American people should hold them all accountable and throw all 535 of them out.
I tell you what, there are definitely a few in my mind that will go unmentioned that I think they should definitely get thrown out. So you've been really because the rest of, in my opinion, our mainstream media is completely asleep at the wheel. So you've been on this Capitol Hill beat, I think, since 2006, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and
the week after graduating college.
Wow, that's amazing. I think the week after graduating college, I was out getting drunk. Anyway,
but as a student here,
right. So you're kind of known now as the reporter that actually has some balls and is and chasing people in Congress down and asking them questions about UAPs. Are the lawmakers, are they less? Do you sense any hesitancy them talking to you as soon as they see you?
Well, it's so funny. You see the little like fear in their eyes, like, oh no, he's gonna ask me, and oh, I gotta keep up on this news because Laslo's gonna push me on it. But it's funny. I've always been general assignment freelance reporter for the most part. But for like Rolling Stone, Playboy, and Vice, I covered cannabis, the drug beat. And what was it? Marco Rubio, a couple years back, it's like, hey, what are you going to ask me about marijuana? And, it kind of became the joke, like, oh, Laslo's going to ask about weed. So I've always been a thorn in their side, whether the terrible war on drugs or now UAPs. Like, whatever they don't want to talk about is what I push them on. The day of the sad Republican baseball shooting, when Steve Scalise, the whip in the house when he was shot. Just remember all the Republicans kept their jerseys on. Most of them who were at that practice kept their jerseys on throughout that day. You know, and some of them still had blood on them from holding, you know, it's tragedy. But I was pressing them on gun control, just saying, hey, these are the policies before Congress. What do you make of this or that? Would these policies you guys should be debating, would any of them have helped this situation? And I remember some of them yelling at me, being, I think I did it for Rolling Stone, and some of them being like, how dare you ask us this now? What? This is what
it's relevant.
our fellow citizens have gone through. This is what school kids across the U.S. go through. Yeah. So, no, I ain't going to put down my mic just because, oh, you're now an average American.
Yeah, these folks need to get off their asses, and I'm glad you're holding them accountable. And speaking of lawmakers running away from you, I wanted to play this clip that I thought was really funny with Cory, Congressman Cory Booker.
Hey, what do you want from me? Have you looked into that UAP, UFO whistleblower?
Come on, to the UAP whistleblower.
Yeah, the new one.
I don't know. I want to find out about it now.
Did you ever? Yeah, Gillibrand's planning hearings and stuff. You haven't really been.
I haven't dug into it. My staff is obsessed with it, though.
Right?
Yeah.
I did a piece for Wired on it, and now there's thousands.
Read,
yeah, look into it.
Piece. I want to read the piece.
Will do.
What do you want from me?
Right?
That's awesome. So what was the story behind that? I guess he saw you coming, or what? Did you were like trying to catch him with a bird net, or what?
He's one of the more, you know, like even Republicans love him. He's just a chummy guy who's always joking. Who's, you know, he's got a good. He seems genuine and warm. Like him and Tim Kaine are like super genuine. So I kind of think they're serial killers. Because it's like, hey, I trust you a little too much. You're a little too nice, a little too normal. So I'm like, no. You got skeletons in your closets. But I used to be the correspondent, or for years I was, for WHYY, Philadelphia's NPR station, so I would cover basically the South Jersey delegation, Delaware, and then obviously Pennsylvania and Philadelphia regions lawmakers. So through that, I got to know Booker fairly well. I've asked this to Elizabeth Warren and then Tom Steyer, all in print. Like, hey, when I was covering cannabis, I'm like, oh, you've never tried it? You can come over to my place and try it anytime. It's legal here in Washington.
Right.
And Booker, he was like, oh, no, he's a teetotaler like President Biden. And he's like, oh, no, I don't touch that or anything. He goes, but my chief of staff, he'll take you up on that. His chief of staff got so red in the face.
That's hilarious. That's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's jump into this topic of UAPs. So since we've had you on, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened. Mainly the hearing in the House, the UAP hearing that Tim Burchett, I think, really spearheaded. And of course, we had three witnesses that everyone knows about: Ryan Graves, former Navy pilot, and David Fravor, the guy that ran into the Tic Tac, and then of course whistleblower David Grusch, who was really the bombshell witness, where he said, yeah, we have this whole reverse engineering program of UFOs, and we have a whole fleet of them. They could probably like have a Hertz rent-a-car with those things. They've got so many of them in storage. And obviously there's been a huge amount of backlash from the intelligence community with them just trying to shut them down. And then you had these, with that one journalist that, I won't even get into it, that brought up stuff out of his past to try and discredit him. What a fucking asshole that guy was. Anyway, Tim Burchett, who I am a huge...
On that one.
Sorry, that again?
Not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I'm curious on that one, and not to cut you off.
Yeah,
but,
go ahead.
And I don't have like any proof or whatever, but just my gut on that is what the intel community does. And I'm a comms professor. I teach political comms. So I actually train a lot of press secretaries on the Hill. And so what I kind of feel that strategy was intel community or someone at DOD probably like dropped the crumbs for the intercept and said, hey, go sniff this out. It felt like, well, let me put it this way. I don't think my intercept colleagues and even buddies who work there, I don't think they were just like thumbing through state court documents themselves, but why would they? So someone somewhere pointed them in that direction. So yeah, that one felt not orchestrated, but it didn't feel, what's the word? Spontaneous,
Right.
shall I say.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that jerk of a reporter, and obviously not all reporters are jerks. We love you and many others.
Yeah, we are.
But
we're all assholes.
But no, he ended up admitting that it was sources from the intelligence community that initially reached out. So exactly what you postulated,
right.
exactly happened. And
That's the game.
Yeah, well,
done in Washington.
Yeah, it's
You can get someone else to do your dirty laundry for you.
Yeah, and it's really just absolutely shameful, and in that particular
Let's just say it out loud. If you have PTSD, hey, a lot of us do. You are not alone. What you're going through, I've gone through after being in the Capitol on January 6th. Like, reach out to me, reach out to anyone. Anything, and especially our nation's veterans. Like, God bless you, and of course you're fucking shell shocked.
Yeah,
like, you guys sent you to hell. So there's no shame there whatsoever.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a shame in what that guy did. It turns out in a previous thing on Twitter, he got into some spat with a very well-known journalist. It was about ivermectin and COVID, and he just decided, I'm going to go see if she's got an arrest record. Pulled up a DUI record and doxed her right on Twitter. So that guy's. He lives in the gutter and belongs in the gutter. Anyway, onward. Senator Tim Burchett, you had this really extensive phone call conversation, and this clip is a bit long, but I think it's really important for our viewers to hear, and we're gonna stop it along certain ways, at certain points, and kind of get your comments there, but. This is really great, and let's take a look. This is, not Senator Tim Burchett, Congressman Tim Burchett. Here we go.
I don't watch those debates. I haven't watched one since George Bush Sr. My theory on debates are you bring your side, I bring my side, and we both leave thinking we won. And so I just don't. But I saw, I've been asked about the Chris Christie comment. I just like, I think that there's a huge community out there. I think it shows your ignorance, really. You got $60 million aircraft flying around, and they've had 14 documented near misses with unidentified flying objects. So I would educate myself on the issue.
Well, that was one of the striking things to me, because the start of this Congress, we had Chinese spy balloons invading American airspace. That we initially did not detect. So they were UFOs.
Yeah. Well, and also we've had, in one of those that was shot down, there is some question of what we shot down too. So I don't know all the details of that, but yeah, it's a mystery. I don't believe he was briefed very well. I think I would have just said, I want total transparency. I want the federal government to release the files on this stuff. That's all I would have said. And then how are you going to argue with that?
Well, it's funny.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the Chris Christie thing, but yeah, wow, what a horrible answer. And I especially felt bad for the moderator. I'm blanking on her name, but totally put her on the spot.
Martha McCullough, I believe, in Fox. But it was funny, because Chris Christie in that GOP debate, he tried to flip it onto her, and she became rightfully defensive. But it was just, I take a step back from it, and this might be because I'm a political comms and media professor. So I actually study Fox News and Newsmax and MSNBC and all those a lot. But it was funny because you're seeing this narrative kind of change. Like, people are falling back into the tropes, like, oh, this is like X-Files, but like said, it's like a joke. Like, oh, you guys are, talking about conspiracies or whatever. Let's just really focus on the fact America's airspace was invaded by a balloon and some other objects that our government, our military, who we spend about like $1 trillion on a lot of expensive toys annually of our money. None of those toys can like even find a balloon or these other objects. So no. They might try to say like laugh away this conversation, but it's a very serious conversation that our elected leaders need to wrestle with. And even like post the House Oversight hearing with Grusch, it was interesting because you saw someone like Republican Adam Kinzinger, the former congressman from Illinois, who is no longer in office, but now he's basically a CNN pundit. And, he was pointing out like, hey, for Chad and Congresswoman Luna, a lot of these people at the hearing, they're Freedom Caucus folks, so like they're these fringe right, far off, ideologically, which, yeah, they are on some issues, but on this, they're not in the mainstream at all, but they're at the center of a debate that is becoming more mainstream. Because after that oversight hearing, I talked to Congressman Jamie Raskin, and we had this interview up on askapol.com. And Congressman Jamie Raskin, who is the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, who also spearheaded one of the impeachment trials against former President Donald Trump. So that Jamie Raskin, after that hearing, he was like, hey, Grusch is very credible. He says that there's about 40 or so people in the government who can verify what his claims are. He's like, hey, I want to talk to Grusch in a classified setting. I want to talk to these other people. That was not just Jamie Raskin saying, hey, there's a there that we need to tackle, part of our duty as lawmakers. But then it was also Republican Nancy Mace from South Carolina, who one of the more moderate Republicans left in Washington. So
I have a crush on her.
Hey, get in line.
Anyway.
So there's, and AOC after that hearing. So the far left and the far right, but then the folks in the middle. And so, this issue, while some lawmakers or pundits are trying to push it into the normal hyper-partisan BS, that our town is known for, this issue doesn't belong in that. You have Senator Gillibrand, and then Senator Mark Warner, who's the other one? Oh, Senator Rubio.
Right.
And now, Rubio and Gillibrand are not extremes. Like Rubio, he's investigating this in his role as vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, taking it very seriously and credibly. He says, because that's what the intelligence community's inspector general sent to Congress. They said that they reviewed Grusch's claims, that they were credible, and they sent it to Congress stamped urgent. And so while it works in some people's advantage, it seems, to try to put this issue, like brush it aside by saying, oh, this is just the loonies, spearheading this issue. No, if it's the loonies, then hey, there's a lot more loonies than there are establishment folks, it seems.
That is for sure. So let's continue on here with your fantastic interview with Congressman Tim Burchett. Here we go.
Moderator, she was like trying to defend herself, and she's like, look, Congress is investigating this, but there was still that laughter. It's almost like you had the media and like this left coast
Yeah.
elitists, and they were just
the largest attended. I was told today that they think it could have been the largest attended hearing in maybe 12 years or something in Congress.
oh yeah, I haven't seen a line like
There's
that.
over 1,000 people there apparently for that thing. I didn't really had an overflow room for people to watch it.
I'm like, I don't
yeah.
think I've seen that many people since Major League Baseball was dragged in
Yeah.
for steroids. But like, is it disheartening at all seeing? I mean, because you've been fighting the battle on the Hill.
It is disheartening, but it just shows their ignorance, and they don't have anybody briefing them on that stuff because their heads are all up their butts. They've got these paid political pundits that tell them what to say and what colors to wear and
Yeah.
what color tie to wear and all that. And I just don't pay that stuff in much. And I didn't watch it. I didn't hear about it till today, but I'm not surprised. But I am disappointed.
Well, then it's also curious because you have like the political consulting community that's always like a few decades possibly behind the American public, or at least a few years behind the American.
It's so interesting because what he's saying there, and what we were kind of talking about. Oh, and we lost each other on that call, which
Right.
I think you hear in the background there with the ringing. But yeah, the DC political consulting community is so out of touch. I mean, it's almost like they're a decade behind because I was really butting my head, or I butted up against this again, covering drug policy. Because polls would show, hey, 2/3 of the American people support, recreational marijuana, or at least decriminalization. And literally pre-COVID, one of the last polls I saw was that in Mitch McConnell's Kentucky, some like 60% of Republicans in Kentucky supported legalization.
Really?
But yeah.
Wow.
And so but then you have McConnell, and he's like the establishment's establishment. And like the political consulting class is usually alumni from those leadership offices. So they work for McConnell, and then they go and fan out and make their millions. And use McConnell's wisdom into the rank and file. And so just like they did with the war on drugs, like completely missed it. Because now what? More than 20 states have outright legalized cannabis, but probably 30, 40 states.
I think so, yeah.
Most of the nation now has legal medicinal weed. And like here in the nation's capital, we got shrooms legal now, or at least super decriminalized. But
Okay.
marijuana. I was walking by the White House the other day, and just a newly bought bag of weed was just laying on the ground.
Wow.
I got it sitting over there. I'm going to get a fentanyl test for it just to be extra safe. There's not really fentanyl in weed. Like, that's kind of a myth, but this is going to be safe. But so anyway, all that to say, even when polls show politicians that, hey, this is where the people have moved, whether gay marriage, abortion, whatever, they're just like stuck in the past. And on this issue, that's where it's interesting to have the young energy from Burchett and Luna. And honestly, like their I don't give a fuck attitude.
I love it.
Which like really annoys Speaker McCarthy. It really did at the start of the year.
Great.
Votes to get him the speakership.
Right.
But it's kind of interesting. Like that I don't give a fuck attitude is why, there's probably lawmakers in the past who held these beliefs or had a lot of questions. They just kept them to themselves. So that's where former majority leader in the Senate, Harry Reid, really stood out and would garner headlines because he took this stuff seriously, but he would still be laughed off. So now that the American public has caught up, because I think, about 60%
around that
believe that there is intelligent life out there. So you have to see like the American people change rapidly, but Washington's just still stuck in the past. But here again, they have to account for an invasion of American airspace.
Right.
At the very least, there's that. But again, David Grusch's second main claim, his first claim is like, hey, there's craft that the government has, there's programs, but he says there's secret programs, these SAPs, special access programs, that the bureaucracy has hidden from Congress for decades and decades. And that claim is sitting, or that claim should stare every elected lawmaker in the face every morning, because either they refute it or they didn't do their job, because it's either true or it's false. And if the bureaucracy is hiding something from Congress, that's a serious issue, no matter what topic it's on.
100%. It's because essentially then you have a military junta running everything. So I mean that's not what the Constitution set up. It's crazy.
And not even like the unelected. It's not even that they're like unelected. It's the military-industrial complex. And
yes,
I've also covered them for years, and it's hilarious when I look at Connecticut and you have like these mostly anti-war Democrats. Like what Senator Chris Murphy was elected running against the Iraq War. I believe he came here in 06, maybe 08 in the House, and then he ran for Senate later. But him and Blumenthal in Connecticut, like they're very progressive. They don't like wars, but don't mess with Sikorsky. Don't mess with their helicopter. Like when it comes to the billions of dollars in weaponry coming out of Connecticut, they support the fuck out of that.
Oh yeah.
And if you touch that, and the military-industrial complex has spread out their manufacturing apparatus to about all 50 states, because they know that's local jobs, the lawmakers. This fucking.
No, it's crazy, and you know a lot of these lawmakers in Washington are receiving on both parties. It's not just one side or the other, but they're receiving cash from these defense contractors, and we're going to get to Congressman Mike Turner in a minute when we roll some more of that tape. But it's sad when the leaders of our country. They're holding their self-interest more important than in more importance than their job, which is representing us and doing their job, and their self-interest and how much defense dollars they can line their pockets with. My theory, and it's purely my personal theory, is Congressman Mike Turner is very well bought off. You hear the statements, and again we'll get to that when we roll the tape, regarding Grusch, and of course the rumors that we have heard about him lobbying the Speaker of the House and Comer to kill any further hearings. But let's get to that in the tape here. Let's see.
Sorry, brother.
Hey, it's all good. But so this political consulting community, but people are just way behind. And if you look at polls, 65% of Americans say they believe there's intelligent life out there.
Yeah.
What do you think of that disconnect?
That's just what it is. These people live within a little glass bubble, and again, their arrogance won't allow them to lower themselves to our standards, I guess. I don't know. I never was a Chris Christie fan anyway. I think he's kind of a bully, but that's fine.
How do you get this on the radar of?
I don't know. I seriously thought about maybe just calling his people and saying, "Hey, I'd love to talk to you about the issue," and give you a heads up next time so you don't get popped on it, because apparently he's getting raked over the coals pretty good. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, and right now he's being introduced to UFO Twitter, and there's a lot of them.
Unidentified fat object. Yeah, I've heard that.
What do you, but even is part of this a failure of party leaders on Capitol Hill, that them and other people on Intel, there's a select few who are aware of it, but
well, Intel is pretty much washed their hands of it. The Intel committee, from what I've been told. and they, they're just spoon-fed whatever the intelligence community tells them, whatever the big boys at the missile defense contractors that want to keep their money flowing tell them.
Yeah, what do you make of the stuff that we're hearing about Turner and Comer?
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Wait, say that again?
What do you make of the stuff that we're hearing about Mike Turner and then Comer, that they're kind of working together to just put an end to this investigation?
Squash it? Yeah, I've heard that. And I don't know. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Again, they tried to block. Everybody tried to block everything from this thing. It just got too big. They thought they could bring it in and all merge it. It'll make a joke of this thing. It won't be anything. And then it turned into the biggest thing of the year.
And how do you, I mean, if the intelligence committee, well, the intelligence chair, and then if the oversight chair want to bury this, can they bury it, or do you have tools to?
Yeah, they can. They not allow us to. They won't allow us to have the select committee, which looks like the road they're going down.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah, but they'll pull back a nub. I got a feeling we'll. Hey, I got to roll.
Yes, sir.
Back at you later, okay?
It's all good, brother. I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me interrupt your recess again.
No, you're good. You pay my salary. You call me anytime, brother. See ya.
You have a good one, sir. Cheers.
You call me anytime, brother. I freaking love that guy. I've tried to get him on. I've tried to get him on the show. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, I love when he said, like, he views himself, and it feels really natural with him.
Yeah.
It feels genuine, very genuine. But when he's like, "No, I pay your salary," I love that thinking. He's like, because the old guard, they're like, "No, we get our month of August off. We'll talk to you when we're back. Don't bother us." He's like, "I'm a taxpayer-funded lawmaker. I don't get time off." It's a good mindset.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, so, the thing I love about Burchett, I'm a Democrat, he's a Republican, so there's a whole lot we don't agree on. But he's done such amazing work on this topic and bringing it forward. And the thing that's great about him, he just doesn't give a fuck what people think about him. And right. I love that. I wish more politicians on both sides of the aisle were like Burchett. And the guy, he has no fear. I'm a huge fan of his, and even though I'm on the left side of the aisle, I always say that we treat the whole UAP subject in a very bipartisan way, and we are happy to sing Congressman Tim Burchett's accolades. So anyway, kind of got off.
Go ahead. One way I describe the job of a congressional or political reporter is that I say my job is to get lawmakers to fuck up and tell me what they're actually thinking.
Right.
And because they're trained. Honestly, they're trained by my students to evade and walk around topics where I actually encourage my students. No, people want openness, especially these days. They want transparency and genuine politicians. And so, yeah, he just naturally fits into that fuck Washington vein. Where he's like, whoa, you're actually telling me what you're thinking. That's new.
That's new. Yeah. Wow. We need more politicians like that. So getting back to the meat of it. So what I got out of it is he was essentially saying that people are trying to kill this whole thing again with Mike Turner. What are, other than what you've been told by Congressman Burchett, what are you hearing about Congressman Mike Turner and whether we're going to see any House hearings?
So the House not back from their recess until Tuesday, so I finally get access to them after a month and a week on Tuesday. So yeah, I have lots of questions. Obviously, I have follow-up questions for Burchett because I'm curious what he's heard. I did, give him some space the last couple of weeks. Yeah, we do work insane and ungodly hours in this town. But don't pity us. We should burn this town down. Anyway,
Yeah, Trump already tried to do that. Sorry, going ahead.
oh, good one. But so yeah, I'm very intrigued. Comer's the one. So House Oversight Chair James Comer, he's the one I'm most curious, and I want to like corner because him and I have a good relationship. I used to be the correspondent for Kentucky Public Radio, especially WEKU in southeastern Kentucky. So
Okay.
I know him, and he's been very open. And remember, we have all these at askapol.com. I've had I've had 3 exclusives with Comer. The first 2 were pre-Grusch hearing in the House, where he said, hey, I defer to Burchett and Luna. He goes, I'm learning about this issue as we go. He goes, they're experts. Well, then closer to the hearing date, you could tell someone not got to him, but it seems like someone from the Speaker's office, Speaker's office, Intelligence Community, or Intelligence Committee. Anyway, he says that, yeah, he was getting pressure from Comer, or Burchett says he started feeling pressure, and you could see it. Comer changed his tune. And again, like the night before that hearing on the House floor, it was so fascinating. Burchett, Luna, Moskowitz, all of them were walking up to the House floor. They were giddy. They were happy. They're like, yo, we're the UFO squad.
Yeah.
They go and vote. Another reporter smacks me and he shows me his phone, and it was Burchett tweeting out on the House floor that he just learned that Comer basically screwed him. And even though he was saying he deferred to him and Luna, he wasn't going to let them have the gavels and actually run that hearing. And so I caught up with Burchett after that vote, and he was disappointed. And but he's still the Southern gentleman. And, you could see that he still had faith that, hey, we're doing an investigation. This, people are behind me. This is going to go forward. And so he kind of knew going into that, Burchett did, that, as he put it to Steve Bannon on his podcast, The War Room, he said, we're only going to get one shot at this. And he kind of knew that going in. But then, like you said, hundreds, if not, as he said, 1,000 people at that hearing. That opened up a lot of people's eyes. And then all the cameras there, a bunch of news outlets, all the mainstream media was there. I like when they follow my lead.
Exactly, yeah.
And so it was interesting then to see the narrative kind of change on the other side of that. Because again, coming out of that hearing, you had Jamie Raskin, Nancy Mace, AOC, like literally every faction that I can think of within a very fractured capital was all in on this investigation and had questions that they still don't have answers to. Well, so then you start hearing this pressure. And again, people like Kissinger were putting out that, the usual argument, like, oh, these are fringe folks.
Kissinger? Henry Kissinger?
Kissinger.
Oh, okay. Adam Kissinger. Okay, yeah. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Saturday. I don't even know. We're in. But so you started seeing Washington fall into the same, just the tracks that they've always written on this. But that's where what Grusch is saying is new. They're using the same old things they've used in the past, but it's like, no. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this. And so it's going to be curious to see which Comer, because after that hearing, or in the middle of that hearing, as I believe Comer was getting driven to go do a TV hit, because then he came back, he was saying, oh yeah, I believe what I'm hearing from Grusch and these guys. And Comer actually, what he told us, which is on Askapol, he was like, well, those 2 pilots in there, they stood out to me because those pilots saw it with their own eyes.
Right.
And he's like, I want to hear more of that. And so this is what I do with lawmakers. I'm going to lay that back for Comer. You know, depending on what he says, where the investigation goes, I'm curious, hey, what happened to you on July 25th and then July 26th, day of the Grusch hearing, and then it seems like a new Comer now post that. And again,
Comer 2.0.
Yeah, and it could be Comer getting pressure from Speaker's office, the Intelligence Committee, or the intelligence community. Specifically when it comes to Intel Chair Turner, I've known him for 17 years because I covered him for local Ohio NPR stations. He used to do interviews in the hallway with me and other reporters. Now that he's chair and now that we're this hyper partisan BS media landscape, he won't do hallway interviews with everyday reporters, you know, the traditional press corps, but then you'll see him on Fox or one of the other conservative outlets later in the day. So yeah, he's already brushed aside my questions on this once. He's going to be seeing a lot more of me. We're going to get Turner to talk because I know he's got vocal cords that he can use. He's going to use them on Ask a Poll.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you gotta chase that guy down the hallway. I've always loved the footage where you see like reporters chasing him into that whatever that elevator is, and it's just insane. So when you see Senator Burchett, you got to tell their staff, please let him come on my show. We reached out, and I think it's the folks that work for him are squashing it. So, Congressman Burchett, you have a friendly audience here. Come on our show and talk about the good work you're doing. Sorry, go ahead.
Here's a free comms tip. He's pretty active on Twitter. Be active with him on Twitter and then get him to follow you and then DM him.
There you
go. Might work.
I love that. There you go, folks. That's your tip of the day. So
and if the audience tells him, if the audience says, "Hey, Laslo was on the show. He likes good trouble. They want you on there. He might bite."
I'm gonna try that. I'm definitely gonna try that. And we're gonna take a little mid-station break. We're doing something a little bit different. Usually we do our kind of promo and Patreon stuff at the front end, but we decided to get into it. So folks, if you are enjoying our interview today, please smash that thumbs up and subscribe button and leave a comment. We always want to know what you think about this show. And if you're a podcast fan, you can also find us on all podcasting platforms. Just search for The Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford. Finally, your financial support enables us to bring you this show with killer guests like Matt here. Please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Go to www.patreon.com/The Good Trouble Show and choose the right plan for you. And for those of you that are watching us live on YouTube, Super Chats are open and a great way to show your financial support. We very much appreciate it. So anyway, Mac, now that I've got my shameless plug out of the way, we actually want...
Hey, my job as a freelancer, my job is shameless self-promotion. I'm all about it.
Yeah,
we gotta eat.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing is for free in this life. That is for sure. And sorry, stopping that. This is what happens when you're a one-man operation and you're trying to run everything. But we have a very big announcement coming up. This let's see, what button do I press here? Saturday, September 23rd. The lovely comedian David Foley will be joining the Good Trouble Show. That's Saturday, September 23rd, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm just so excited to have him on. Of course, he's another sort of Hollywood celebrity, very very well-known guy for kids for his different movies he's been in, Kids in the Hall and other shows, and he is not afraid. He's a celebrity that is not afraid to talk without fear about this subject. So we're really excited to have him on again. Comedian David Foley, Saturday, September 23rd, 2 p.m. Pacific. All right, let's see if I can continue to press the right buttons here. So I'm going to take your advice up on tagging Burchett. I would love to have him on, and I'll send you a nice bottle of wine if your little trick happens there. So. So you've actually been doing this. For quite a while, and we went on your website askapoll.com, and I found some really great photos of you that I just thought were great. This is my favorite. You're sitting in what is that? Your office? That might be the tiniest office I've ever seen.
Is that the cubicle in the Capitol?
Yeah, that's oh yeah, you may not be able to see it there, but yeah, that's the cubicle in the Capitol.
I keep a bottle of moonshine underneath that desk, which came in very handy on January 6th.
Nice. Oh, I love that. Can you see the photos when I'm bringing them up?
I can't.
Okay, all right. Anyway, yeah, so there's some other fun ones. There's a black and white of you getting some congressman on record. I don't know who that is.
I think I'm chasing, am I running? I think I'm chasing Bob Casey in that one.
That might be. And then yeah, we have another one here. It looks like you're like tapping your elbow. You're going to draw blood or something.
Which lawmaker?
Oh, I'm yeah, I'm poorly prepared for this segment. So, and then there's somebody that's tapping you on the head in purple on a escalator. Who is that?
I think that's Senator Dianne Feinstein fixing my hair.
Oh, I love that. Anyway, yeah.
17 years working at the Capitol, and that's the first time that one happened.
That's fantastic. Okay, so Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who we've had on our show, and we hope she will come back. So she had this to say to you in another interview.
You have good office?
I did. It was a really fun RV tour.
Oh, yeah.
14 counties upstate New York.
Oh, yeah. Any
Updates?
updates?
No, I got to follow up on getting the meetings. I don't know what happened to the requests for meetings with the whistleblowers, but I don't know where it is right now, so I got to find out.
So is that kind of how everything is here? Picking up steam after?
Yeah, we just have to just get things on the schedule.
So,
yeah, unfortunately, some of the captions, our media player isn't quite working well. And of course, on the Good Trouble Show, we always have some kind of technical difficulty. But anyway, what was your thought? What are your thoughts on what she had to say? And then also, too, what are your thoughts on what Senator Gillibrand has and has not said post David Grusch?
Well, so that one was interesting because I would have thought, and Gillibrand kind of knows, like you hear it there. I would start walking up to her and she's like, oh, what's the latest UFO, UAP news? Because that's what he's going to ask me about. I also hound her on crypto and some other things. But she wasn't quite up to speed. And that's why I kind of wanted to put that out on Wednesday this week, because even though Congress is back, they're still kind of like shaking off the slumber. You know, they just got out of a month-long hibernation, and a lot of their staffs take their big vacations during August. So the people who usually brief her on these issues, they might have been unplugged. And so someone on Twitter earlier this week kind of was confused by what she said, and I wanted to clarify that, and I'm glad we get the chance here. Someone read it as like, oh, her scheduled meetings with the whistleblowers got scraped. That's not how I read that. It was more so that, oh, she just lost track of, well, her scheduler, but also her schedule. So it still seems like it's a priority for her, but she just hadn't checked in with that person in her office. That's kind of how I read that.
Okay.
But again, like, she's doing that with every issue, and she's big on, fighting sexual assault in the military. She would have that same response to that bill. It was that was my feeling this whole week with most lawmakers. They're just getting still got their sea legs on because many of them probably own boats and shit and hang out on
Big boats. I'm sure Mike Turner has a nice big boat, courtesy of Lockheed Martin, that he's floating around, more like a super yacht, I would guess.
And so I know people were pretty disappointed in that. I mean, because she's just, to answer your second question, she's been hard to peg. And it's interesting watching my followers on Twitter being like, kind of calling her out. I'm giving her space because I'm kind of in the camp of, all right, I trust you until you show me why I shouldn't.
Right.
Which isn't quite true. I definitely trust any politicians 100%, but whatever. But that's kind of my operating my modus operandi. Yeah, and so with her, I mean, because she's been the most aggressive senator on this issue, and she's the one who's taking Grusch the most seriously. I only pause because it would be a contest between her and Marco Rubio. I'd say the two of them have been at the front of this in the Senate, and like Gillibrand's never moved at the speed that UFO Twitter, for lack of a better term, has wanted. But it's the Senate, so the Senate's always going to be a different beast than the House. The House is the rowdy 435. They're closer to us, the people, and us, the people, we're batshit crazy. So of course, the people in the House are going to be batshit crazy.
Right.
Sorry, America. They are a reflection of us, for worse or worse.
Copy that.
And so with Gillibrand, it does kind of seem like some of the initial wind has been taken out of her sails. That's just my feeling from the outside. Now, whether that wind was removed from her sails by, maybe Chair Warner or, the Intel community, because she's interesting. She's one of only 6 lawmakers who sits on both the Senate Intelligence Committee and the Armed Services Committee. So she's been kind of investigating this more from her Armed Services role. So that looks at, they have oversight over the military and all that. Of course, what she knows and what they learn in most Intelligence Committee briefings is classified. And so it's kind of felt to me like she's been taking some of what she learns in classified settings and then using Armed Services to attempt to publicize it or to push that information out as much as she can, because it's, as if you watch David Grusch's testimony in the House, I don't know if anyone tallied it up, but probably dozens of times he said, I can't talk about that. I can talk about it with you in classified setting, but can't even step near it here in public. And so she's got to walk that tightrope. We'll see. I'm going to, as she knows, I'm going to keep asking her. I'm right now kind of still getting, again, their sea legs back. So I'm giving her especially a little bit of space. But I'm not going to give her that space for long. As she knows. So I'm curious what happens in the Senate.
Do you think we'll see hearings? Do you think on the Senate side that we'll say again?
All I can say is it would be a failure, according to what Gillibrand's told me. That she told me and us at Ask a Poll, we're the people-powered press corps. So we're just asking your questions to your lawmakers at your U.S. Capitol. And so Gillibrand told me she wanted to meet with Grusch privately, but then also to have public hearing with him. And then she also says that the people who, the other whistleblowers who corroborated Grusch's story in that first debrief exclusive, which is the article that we're all still talking about.
Right.
Good job, y'all.
For sure.
And so she said that I think it was like 3 to 5 other people are in that story who corroborate what Grusch is saying. She said from day one, she also wants to hear from them. And so that's the bar she set. And so I'm going to hold her to that standard. You know, things change, and I actually like it. Like, I hate the term flip-flopper. It's the worst term in politics. Like, we should want lawmakers to be able to learn new information and then change their minds based off that, because they should, if they're doing their duty, they have access to a lot more information than we do. And so I think it'd be good for all lawmakers to do a lot of research and then go back to their constituents and be like, holy shit, I campaigned on this, but that was bullshit. I learned this, you know? And so I think they should be rewarded for that. So we'll see. She's meticulous and thoughtful because she's tiptoeing through Senate landmines. Because, yeah, there's some senators who just brush aside. Who was it? The chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, Jim Risch. He goes, it's on our website, askapol.com, but I think he says, I don't read UFO stories. What the fuck?
Wow. Okay.
I don't read UFO stories. Well, what the fuck? Did you not read any news when the Chinese spy balloon was literally over American airspace? Because at first, y'all didn't know what the fuck that was, which is the definition of a UFO or UAP. So there's still that dismissive old guard in the Capitol. So again, she has to tiptoe through that while maintaining the respect of her colleagues, et cetera. I think, didn't she mock the issue a little bit in a video that came out when she was with constituents?
Yeah. I don't have that clip, but I was going to ask you about that. I think a lot of people were very surprised, and I don't know if it was because she was playing to her constituents. Obviously, she's very careful in what she says, but what was your take on that?
My take is, she fell back in to the old trope that Chris Christie pushed on McCall on Fox in that debate. It's so funny because you have this, like, lawmakers, they are barreling forward with these investigations, and she knows it's credible, unless she's lied to me and all of us at Ask a Poll. Like, she knows it's credible. She's investigating it seriously. Hell, the House Oversight Committee had a public hearing on it where all the lawmakers left saying, wow, we have more questions. We need a classified hearing to get to the bottom of this. And then you look at polls, again, some 60% of Americans, and that's a rapid change on that issue in the past 2-3 years. So you've seen this rapid change, but she's like riding that wave. She's like with the people, but then somehow she gets pulled back to that same vein. But if she's thinking, when she's sitting there giving that speech in front of those people, she should be thinking 60% of this audience cares about this issue.
Yeah, a large amount.
That there is something there. And so you can tell she's kind of at war within herself, the old guard pulling her back, et cetera. So yeah, my job is to throw stones at glass houses, but sometimes my job is just polishing those pebbles for the right moment. So
I have the question for you to pose to Senator Gillibrand. You want to hear it?
Okay.
Okay, so we, all right, making those. Yeah, we were the first to report that other whistleblowers recently completely bypassed AARO and Sean Kirkpatrick and have filed PPD-19s with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. What are your thoughts on the fact that whistleblowers do not or continue to distrust Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick and AARO? That'll be an interesting response, I guarantee you, when you ask her that.
That was such a good question that I was like, I don't have an answer. And it was like, he's asking me. Well done.
Thank you. Hey, maybe I'll move to DC and I'll take the telephone booth right next to you. You just have to share some of your moonshine.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course. That's the press corps moonshine.
Yeah, I like that. But you know,
That is fascinating. Because remember, Gillibrand, she told me, because remember, so she was a part of Chuck Schumer's UAP amendment to the defense authorization bill, which we learned from Senator Mike Rounds and some of the others. It was so broad that their definition of non-human intelligence, which was used 20 times in their amendment, so non-human intelligence, pushing Rounds on it, he was like, yeah, that encompasses artificial intelligence. Or he said it could encompass artificial intelligence. And so pushing all 6 of those, well, 5 of the 6, Majority Leader Schumer still isn't calling me back, but I used to be his local correspondent too, so he knows I'm coming. So with Schumer, that bill, that whole UAP thing, I got basically all 5 of the other members on that to say, well, and I got Schumer's office to confirm that it was not focused on David Grusch and his claims. Their UAP measure was more the legacy of Harry Reid and more focused on transparency, because Schumer had promised Reid that, you know, he would pick up the mantle after he left. I joke with some lawmakers, and I'm a little bit serious. It's a joke. I'm curious if Schumer, because remember, Harry Reid announced his retirement, and then in his number 2 at the time was Dick Durbin.
Okay.
Dick Durbin was passed over for Chuck Schumer. You know, Durbin's from Illinois, my home state.
Okay.
Nice Midwesterner. You know, Schumer's got that fire and punch. But I'm kind of like, wait, I wonder if Schumer was like, hey, Harry, don't pick Dick. I'll investigate UFOs. He doesn't take them seriously. I wonder if that's something to him. But so he is carrying through with his promise to Reid to push the government on the bureaucracy on these issues. But it's curious because, and so Mike Rounds was a part of that UAP bill. So it was Gillibrand. Well, they had a meeting that last week of July before Congress went out for their August recess. And Gillibrand told me, because earlier Rounds didn't know the name David Grusch. And then when I explained it, he was like, oh, I know what you're talking about. I just didn't know the name. But he was still confused on some of the issues. So Gillibrand was like, oh, I'm going to push him on this in my private meeting with him. Well, then we find out weeks later, or maybe a week later, when he published the public schedule, that, oh, Senator Rounds, who's also on armed services and intel, he had a sit down, private classified briefing with Sean Kirkpatrick. That one, my head's still spinning. I think Senator Rounds knows a lot more than, he either knows a lot more than he's letting on, or he's really taking this investigation seriously, slowly, and methodically. Because he said after he met with the head of Aero, he said he pushed him on that subject and wanted, he said, and you could tell, listen to it, it's on askapol.com.
We have the clip.
Sounds kind of like, he goes slow in the beginning and he's like, it was good. He's meeting with Fitzpatrick. That's not saying, oh, it was good. It was a good meeting. He's like, I got to say good in public. But no, from what he said, he was pushing him on the fact that a lot of whistleblowers do not trust him in his office to come directly to them. So it's interesting. And this is one to watch. The fact that there's now bipartisan pressure coming from the Senate on Aero, even, and this is kind of the problem with a dysfunctional Washington, but problems can work in your favor. And so on this, you see a lot of oversight because each individual senator, because there's only 100 of them, because each one of them, they're very powerful people. And so when one of them, and then let alone 2 of them, hone in on an issue, they can change the culture or direction of an agency without the rest of the Congress weighing in. And again, this is for better and for worse. So like, be careful what you wish for, because for me, Professor Laslo, my professor's side, I do get worried about unelected bureaucrats having too much power. Well, so should everyone here in this conversation,
100%.
because of the claim on SAPs. So if we have the government hiding these special access programs from Congress, that's really bad. But if you have Gillibrand and Rounds pressuring one agency, they can change that culture. So, sorry, everything's nuanced in my brain.
Of course. So we have the clip of your interview with Senator Mike Brown. So let's listen to that.
How are you?
How you doing?
You have a good August?
I had a great August.
You look so refreshed. Yeah. Just leave us here in the swamp.
Yeah. Hey, you could have went
curious.
someplace.
I was in San Fran for a wedding last weekend.
Oh, okay.
What, how was your meeting with the head of Aero, Fitzpatrick?
I thought it was good. We've got some work to do there, but I think we can make them more effective. Than what they have been in the past.
What would that look like? Are you guys unhappy with the reporting?
No, I think it's I think it's a matter of participation by individuals who are concerned about the ability to be protected if they went to Aero, and so I think that's going to be the challenge is making sure that people who may have had any firsthand knowledge or wanted to share any information could do so.
Are they not? Are you hearing from whistleblowers that they're not feeling comfortable?
Sure. Not so much that, but from other individuals who have expressed a concern on behalf of whistleblowers, but not from the whistleblowers themselves, no.
Did David Grusch come on?
Sorry?
Did David Grusch come on?
I won't talk names.
Yeah. Wise. Wise man. Leave you to my colleague.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
You.
I already hogged him. Have a good one. Thank you, sir. You have a good August.
I'm such an asshole. I'm like,
I hogged him, yeah.
I'm the whistleblower. I'm like, can you narc? Of course, he couldn't say if they discussed Grusch in that meeting. But I'm going to ask it a different way next week.
I definitely think you should. I think that a lot of the lawmakers are kind of treating David Grusch as radioactive. So they're talking. The staffers, of course, are well briefed on all of this, but I think some of them are still hesitant to talk about him, which is just crazy. I mean, the guy was just, he's in front of Congress.
So I'm with you on that. Like, part of me, and again, this is where everything's nuanced. Like, yeah, me as a reporter, I want to know all the secrets. I want all the transparency. But with this, again, it's that Texas two-step. There's a lot of landmines they need to avoid. The biggest one being, they're talking about classified information. So especially when it comes to younger members of the Senate Intel Committee, like I'm thinking of Senator James Langford, Oklahoma Republican. Go and listen to our exclusive with him on Ask a Poll. It's interesting. He's playing 5-dimensional chess. He's like, he wants to find out what I know about David Grusch. He knows the name, but he just doesn't want to talk about it because it's classified. And so you can see some senators just taking that safe route. Hey, classified, not going to talk about it. That's where with the two chairs of that committee, they have a little more leeway. Chairman Mark Warner and then Vice Chair Marco Rubio. They, initially, when I first started pushing Warner on it, again, he's known me for years. I've been covering Congress longer than he's been in the Senate, and I covered him for Virginia Public Radio. And so I've never been, but he invites me to his annual pig roast or whatever. And so
I wish I were on the list.
He's heard me, or I've heard him curse on the convention room floor for Obama's, I think. So he knows me well. He's been telling me things with his eyes, and this is where I apologize that the Capitol's so old and arcane, and especially the rules. Because we're not allowed to do video recordings in the physical Capitol in most of the Capitol itself.
Okay.
You'll see after the classified briefings on C-SPAN or whatever, lawmakers come out and talk at the microphones, but it's in this drab, there's like escalators in the back of it. That's in the Capitol basement. So there's like special rules granted for to have cameras then. There were a lot of the other interviews or news outlets get are like on the Capitol steps out in front. You can record there, or in the halls outside of a hearing. And so the restraints on recording in the Capitol have kind of fucked this over, for lack of a better term. Because sometimes, because I know these lawmakers so much, and because we're talking about classified material, sometimes their eyes are telling me, I have an answer to that, but I can't talk about it.
Yeah.
And so, like what? A lot of our interviews on Askapol are really short. Like that one with Rounds, I just have them for 1 minute, and there's an MSNBC on-air reporter, beautiful. Like, I'd rather talk to her than me anyway. She hopped on the elevator with us.
Right.
So he's on his way to the Senate floor. I get him right after he's leaving the escalator. So now he's got 20 yards. So he gets to the elevator. I get on with him, and then we're 20 seconds up or 10 seconds up to the Senate floor, and then boom, he's got to go vote. So a lot of our work is, as the Congressional Press Corps, is, for one, knowing the lawmakers, but then knowing the issues. And you can sometimes, I say, you can break news with someone's head nod.
You can what? Say that again?
You can break news just from a head nod from a member of the Senate Intel Committee. That's probably what happened with the Watergate stuff. Deep Throat is just hinting. What's that story? It was, what did they do from there? It was, you come to me with the information and I can tell you if it's true or not. Deep Throat wasn't talking a lot to Woodward and Bernstein, or Woodward, I believe, but he would sometimes be confirming things, yes, no, just like that. Again, that's how much they tiptoed around it for a huge scandal that knocked out a president.
Right.
And even Deep Throat, who was the source, wasn't just spewing stuff. He was just sometimes confirming or saying, nope, there. So that's where, with senior senators and members of the Intel Committee, sometimes what they're telling me with their eyes or a head nod, or when they stop themselves, that signaling, oh, I know the answer to that. And Warner said this in one of our exclusives with him. He's like, he stops himself because he knows me. And then he goes, oh, I have to check with staff and whether I can talk about that. So I'm going to my grave with thousands of secrets from lawmakers and ... Just when I grant them off the record or whatever, which I try to rarely do.
Mm-hmm.
Was Vice news correspondent for a handful of years, and Vice's rule was great. We don't use unnamed sources as a rule, but all rules are made to be broken. So come to us with a reason. Why shouldn't the source be named? Well, it's a rape or sexual assault victim. Duh. We're not going to name them if they ask for anonymity. And then ... So there's always exceptions to those rules. But the thinking advice I like to sum up is this, and I also teach journalism as well, is if you don't want to stand by your thoughts, why the fuck are we going to print your thoughts?
Yeah.
I think so much of the distrust in the media stems from how us in the political press corps just lazily get away with unnamed source here, unnamed source here. Half of the unnamed sources quoted in the political press corps is just a Republican taking a weak-kneed jab from the shadows at, a leader. If you really believe that, fucking tell it to me and tell it to him to his face. Otherwise, shut up. Go whisper, gossip somewhere else. You ain't doing it in my pages.
That's right. So I know we're running a little bit over, but if you don't mind, we have a few viewer questions here. Are you up for that?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, great.
I mean, I'd rather talk to them than you any day, bro.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, great. All right, so a question from Tracy Scott. Tracy, thank you for posting the question to both host of today's amazing show. Thank you very much. Our show is only as good as our guests. So, Matt, you're a big part of that. My question is, when do you think those running for president will talk about the UFO issue properly and respectfully to the public?
This would be interesting. I'm going to push Tim Scott on it because we already published our exclusive with Tim Scott. Oh, we did it that night over at askapol.com. And Scott, it was interesting. For one, he doesn't do interviews in the Capitol. Like, that's his rule.
Okay.
Well, I see your rule.
Gotta break it.
I've got the First Amendment tatted on my arm.
There you go. I like that.
Will Feather that wrote the First Amendment, which I flash at lawmakers every day. He's Southern gentleman, so I like hopped the tram with him, and then I just kept talking. You know, he could see my notepad and my mic out. He had to break his rule. It's either break your rule as a Southern gentleman and talk to the nice guy chatting with you, or ... Well, so in that, you get that Tim Scott knows about the issue. He's like watching the investigation happen. So I'm going to keep pushing him on it because he's one that you can tell is a little afraid of the issue because, you know, he's trying to build name recognition, you know, be taken very seriously in a party that historically has not been too favorable to Black and minority lawmakers. So I get the narrow lane that he's in. And so he doesn't want the label as the UFO guy, but he's watching it. You know, a lot of other senators were like, what are you talking about? What is this whistleblower? I've never heard of it. Scott's like, oh, and he came from the House too. So he's trusting his good friends with a lot of the people on House oversight. So he's taking it seriously. He's just watching it from afar. And so I think that's where me and the others, News Nation folks, now people at The Hill seem to be catching up with us at Ask a Poll. But I'm like, the more the merrier. Let press. And actually, I think that'll be it. The more presidential candidates are pushed on these issues, especially on the ground in spots like Iowa. That's where the Iowa caucuses are great. At least for us in the press corps, but especially even for the people of Iowa. And so anyone from Iowa watching, hey, if you go out there and ask these folks who are running for president these issues to their face, they might be able to get away laughing at the faceless people, you know, in the auditorium during a presidential debate. But if you're staring them in the eyes and asking yourself, guess what? They want and need your vote. They're not going to laugh in your face. And if they do, send us that video, and we'll be the last ones laughing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, personally, you know, so again, you know, she's asking, you know, who, you know, do I think those running for president? My personal opinion is yes. I think it's essential that everybody on the Republican side publicly talk about this, these presidential candidates, and my hope is that will finally, if whoever becomes the nominee is not afraid to talk about this thing, it would hopefully finally force Biden's hand to talk about this damn thing and get off his butt.
And don't forget, one of the promises that, you know, this is going back ages and ages, but remember this presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton? One of her promises in the 2016 election was that there was nuance to it, but she basically she promised to open the books and be transparent on all these issues. And guess what? She was the mainest of mainstream candidates we've seen in years in this town. And so I get why the political consulting class is afraid of the issue and mocks it, because they're fucking idiots, you know, and they live in this beltway bubble. 'Cause even right there, that fact alone, that Hillary Clinton was out in front of this issue way before we had whistleblower David Grusch to, like, for a politician to really hang their hat on. Because Grusch's claims should give any politician cover if they needed cover on this issue. He's claiming that the federal government is lying to Congress. How the fuck can you laugh at that and be running for president? Unless you want to keep lying to Congress. And then let's have that conversation.
Right. Well, and my hope too with what Chuck Schumer has done is that, like, one of the things that I found is that, what's that?
I call him Chucky Baby.
Chucky Baby. One of the things that I discovered was that the UAP topic tends to test well with Republicans, but not Democrats. Democrats as a whole seem to be very skeptical about that. And my hope is and again, this is just a generalization, but my hope is that Chuck Schumer, with that legislation, that will give top cover to other people, other Democratic lawmakers to speak up and not be afraid to speak up. Do you think that's true?
So so again, the dynamics, especially, so I don't, as of now, I'd say this issue is still nonpartisan. It just is, which makes it an anomaly in this town. And it's really kind of a breath of fresh air, especially because when I go up and ask lawmakers, and I interviewed all 100 senators about whether they knew David Grusch or not, and then if they did, conversation went one way, or they didn't. We talked sports or whatever. But so it's one of those rare issues. When I was going up to most of those 100 senators and asking, I had no fucking idea what the response would be. That's refreshing. You know, like me, again, political comms professor, I could write the BS speeches for Biden, Trump. Well, he'd be harder because he had the any of these politicians, like, they're so cookie cutter,
right?
And they're like trying to out cookie cutter themselves. That's where this issue is like a real breath of fresh air.
It's great.
Because it just doesn't fall into those normal partisan lines. I'm curious, like, when it comes, so again, that's where it's, to me, it's more Senate versus House. It'll be interesting how presidential candidates either attach to it or don't. Because again, like, if you have an outlier running for president, so like, say RFK Jr., who's challenging Biden, I guess, on the Dem side, if he latched onto this issue, that could actually be like really bad for the cause, you know, because, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist, you know, he'd be brushed aside by large swaths of people instantly. So that's where it'll be interesting. And I'm going to push Burchett on his initial reaction to Chris Christie in the GOP debate. His initial reaction was, hey, I want to reach out to his staff and, you know, brief him. You know,
yeah,
we just did a House fucking oversight hearing on this. We found some shit, like, hey, maybe you should just get this dossier. And so I'm going to push him on that, because that'd be interesting to then see Christie's reaction after that, whether he can take the content seriously or whether he only takes his political consultants seriously.
I certainly hope he does. Okay, another question from Tracy Scott. Has the government reinstituted Project Mockingbird, and why? I don't know what is Project Mockingbird. Do you know?
That's over my head.
Yeah, it's over my.
I come from a family of bird watchers, so I like Mockingbird.
Sorry, Tracy.
It's all I got on that.
Yeah, roger that. Okay, a question from Cream and Cider. That sounds good right about now. Is there any insight into the 2 or 3 whistleblowers who backed out of testifying at the congressional hearing? I haven't heard anything. Have you?
So look on our site, ask a poll. I pushed So this is one where I'm a little confused on, only because then what we do at Ask a Poll is, for the most part, we're putting out the entire raw interview so you can see the exchanges or whatever. And on this one, I'm as confused as Congress. And so, especially with someone like, well, so yeah, from what I heard from Oversight Chair James Comer, initially, when the Grusch hearing was announced and all that, it seems like he's kind of changed his tune. Well, no. The tune changed from July 25th, the day, the eve of Grusch's testimony, until the 27th. And I don't know, it feels to me like there's three different universes right there. Like we're the 25th and then the 26th and the 27th. I've heard different things. And like when I talked to Burchett the night before, and the day of, and then the day after, he isn't changing the content of what he's saying. It's just, when he's a little more frustrated,
Right.
the day of, you get a little more, not more honesty, but maybe he says things that he shouldn't. So I've been confused on whether it's, because I know the House Oversight Committee, some of their staffers, Burchett feels unfairly pressured by. I know he doesn't like the way the intel community has reacted, but that's where I can't tell whether that's Pentagon, whether some of those might be NASA, whether it's folks in the White House. Again, yeah, there's a lot of secrets, or just, there's a lot of mystery,
Right.
cloaking all these issues. And so when it comes to those witnesses, I've kind of heard politicians contradict each other a little bit. And so I'm not sure what happened to them, because then when I talked to Comer again in the middle of that Grusch hearing, he told me, oh no, Burchett got all that he wanted. And I know the fuck he didn't, because he told me he didn't. But then when Burchett's in a good mood, he's like, or because Burchett needs Comer in a good mood.
Okay.
Burchett can't say he knows about Comer, and so that's where the politics of politics matter, and yeah, sadly, that's how this town is fueled. Which reach out to your lawmakers and tell them to burn this town down. Not physically.
Not physically, right? We don't want.
We live here.
Right.
And we're the capital, but
Yeah.
Metaphorically, yeah, we're a useless town. Again, they have 12 laws to their name this year.
Yeah.
Not because they're not pressing issues, and not because there's not hundreds and hundreds of bills that have absolute bipartisan support. Those bills all sit on the back burner where there's agreement. Because guess what? As Americans, we have a lot more in common than we have in difference. We're just not sold that. Both political parties are raising money off the fear factor. And so they're not bringing bills up, both in the House Republican leaders, they're bringing bills up to help their narrative and help their fundraising. Guess what? Same in the Senate with Democrats. And so, again, that's where this issue enjoys that nonpartisan veneer for now. Do your damnedest to keep it that way.
Yeah, unidentified, anomalous, bipartisan phenomenon. That's
Right.
Yeah, that's a rare thing to ever catch on film. That's for sure. Okay, final question.
Acronym worthy of Washington. I'm so confusing.
There you go. So last question here from Carrie Rosen. Any chance that all of this has a normal explanation, whatever normal is, based upon your personal insight?
Yeah, I don't know the definition of normal there.
Me either. I've never been called normal, so.
My first cat is tabula rasa, which is blank slate in Latin. So my buddies say, oh, it's ironic that you got blank slate added on your body.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's aspirational. So I don't believe I studied philosophy in undergrad and studied to be a pastor in a past life. Actually studied to be a pastor and I've given sermons in MTG's district.
Well, how did that go?
Story for another day.
Okay, yeah.
As I told Senator Josh Hawley, I saw the light and it was dark.
I love that.
I became a Playboy and Rolling Stone and Vice correspondent. But every time I just lost my train of thought because I just started thinking about MTG and my preacher past.
Yeah. She'll throw anybody's brain off. So So the question is, do you think that any of this has a prosaic explanation? I'd probably be another way of phrasing that question.
Well, and that's where, my tattoo, tabula rasa. So I come at everything. And so again, I don't believe in objectivity. This is my reminder to myself to stay out of the fray, to stay skeptical. Because again, I interview 535 liars for a living.
Professional liars.
They're talented and they're nuanced in their lies, and most of them aren't lies. They just walk that fine line.
Fine line, right.
And so with that, I have no fucking idea what the answers are. When I'm asking these lawmakers, they have more access for one, or they have classified clearances and all that. I truly come at this, and I try to come at most all issues with a sense of mystery, but then also, as I tell people, I don't give a fuck about my opinions. And literally, that's why in Askapol, we're publishing the raw interviews because, again, this is media professor Laslo, but we have about 50% of the American people saying they don't just distrust the media. They don't just think we're fake news. 50% of the public thinks we're actively lying to them. And so that's where the whole premise of Askapol is giving y'all raw interviews, transcripts, so y'all can hear for yourselves. And so I just try to stay out of it as much as possible. But my job is to keep pushing lawmakers for as much information as they have. And that's been kind of the beauty of Askapol, because now I'm getting fed information from people in the intel community or, outside of Congress and experts on these issues. My DMs are open and I'm on Signal and WhatsApp, Proton Mail. If you want to send me encrypted stuff, reach out. I want all your secrets, and I can keep them secret. But literally, I get so much power when I go to a member of the Intel committee and I drop a nugget of classified material. When they hear that I know with a little bit of what's going on inside the veil, again, that's kind of what Senator Langford, he wanted to know what I knew about David Grusch, So he was playing his cards very close to his chest. And same with Senator Rounds. Some of these people are fishing out what I know. So the more I know, the more that readers and all that send me, the more that you all send me, our brother and sister publications, the more powerful that makes our stance as Askapol going in, keeping these lawmakers accountable. And so, I don't think I ever really come down hard on issues. All of this could be bullshit. Like, shit, we could be living in the Matrix. Just ask Elon Musk.
Right.
And so I don't go that far usually in my skepticism, but I think probably because, regretfully, I once was a Bible-thumping evangelical, telling people they're going to hell, after I saw the light. I think that keeps me in check because I don't want to be that disgusting version of me again. And so when it comes to politics and these issues, I'm agnostic until it comes to people, So when, like my sister-in-law, She had a handful of miscarriages years ago. Now a couple kids, got through those problems. But she was literally given abortion meds to end those pregnancies that were ended. And she's a conservative Christian, and so like,
Wow.
when these issues impact people, that's why I get very defensive of people. And for this, knowing that there's all these whistleblowers who might have different stories to tell, but it seems like they're in agreement that they don't fucking trust Arrow.
Yeah.
So
I would say there's a good consensus there.
Right? And so that's where, it's us in the press corps, a big part of it, I do think we have an impact purely by what we ask.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
And knowing that a lot of these lawmakers, again, have been there longer than most of them. I think I've been there longer now than 75% or 70% of lawmakers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm one of the first people they see during their freshman orientation, and because I flash tats every day and tight pants, and I got my punk haircut. They know me. And for some reason, they still seem to respect me. And so I'm curious what Congress doesn't know. Curious why many of them are content not knowing it. And then I've got a million questions on what the bureaucracy and bureaucrats know. But then I have my eyes, and I'm wondering what the fuck these little Tic Tacs and all that stuff is. But then when I go to an exhibit like I did in Orlando in the spring and see a portion of the universe via the James Webb Space Telescope,
Mm-hmm.
like when I stepped into that room, there was an exhibit in Daytona Beach that I went to. I came out of that knowing, for one, that my little small petri dish size mind is even smaller than I thought going in, and that the universe is much more expansive than any of us ever imagined, which we're learning basically weekly with the James Webb Space Telescope. So I'm kind of dubious of anyone who speaks real objectively on these issues, because I'm filled with wonderment and questions. And we all know governments lie. We know politicians lie. I don't necessarily look at politics as like, I'm not searching for the truth here. I'm holding the folks accountable, hopefully, who have access to what the truth is. And I love my job.
I can tell.
And ask questions for a living that I don't know the fucking answer to.
Hey, exactly. Hey, you get to call Tim Burchett on the phone and have Dianne Feinstein fix your hair for you. So that sounds like a pretty good deal, except for the size of your office. I think they need to upgrade the size of your working space.
You know what I do? When I get to the Capitol, all I do is, and this is kind of post J6, but then also post COVID, because now I have the dual screens and standing desk here at home, and my puppy, good old boy Saru, in back of me. But when I get to the Capitol, I drop my bag, most days, drop my bag off at my cubicle up on the 4th floor above the Senate Radio TV Gallery. And then I walk 5 to 11 miles. I guess I walked 11 miles the day of Grusch's testimony.
Wow.
Because for Wired Magazine, I had to cover a classified AI briefing over on the Senate side. So I don't even sit at my desk. I'm kind of glad that they still have it for me and my bureau. But
I love that.
I mean, some press reporters in Washington are at their desks 24/7, just data mining and all that. I'm the one who's out there in the field who gets the people talking. So again, at Askapol, keep sending me what you all know. I mean, I'm gonna fact check it, gonna verify it. Yeah, send me what you got. Send me your questions. Because honestly, when I come, say if I'm going up to Mike Turner, head of Intel in the House, he's from Ohio. If you're from his state, boom, that'll stand out to him. If you're from his district, when I ask questions from their districts, hey, one of your constituents had this, then I'm like erasing myself from the equation. And it's literally, I want to be your conduit to Congress. lawmakers who run away from me who think I'm an asshole. 'Cause, yeah, I was a fucking asshole to these folks. Like, you all have the power. You're their voters. You wake them up. And so, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, y'all.
Yeah, I love that. And a tip, if you're trying to corner Mike Turner, Congressman Mike Turner, come with a huge wad of cash and say, "Hey, I'm Matt from Lockheed Martin. We've got here's your weekly payment." But you got to put it in like one of those kind of like brown sealed envelopes and like crumple it up and put a rubber band so it looks like you
mean an LBJ envelope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just do that. You'll get Congressman Turner to talk every time. Trust me on that. That's just a joke.
As a freelance political reporter, I'm like, wait, where do I get stacks of cash?
Just use Monopoly money. Just kind of trick him. Okay, Matt. So we're gonna post all of your links on the YouTube description. But how can people follow you and support this amazing journalistic work that you're doing?
So you can follow me on, I guess I'm still on Twitter, X a lot. I mean, actually, people reach out to me with this. Because I know there's a big Reddit community, but in this post-Twitter, current X stage, I know a lot of people are going to different sites. I even see here, I've got notes that I'm supposed to get on Blue Sky, but I'm also on Threads. So let me know where you're going with your conversations, but I still have the biggest following of all my Twitter or all of my social media accounts on Twitter. So you can follow me at Matt Laslo, where follow at Ask a Poll, ask_a_poll. That's just more our straight up UFO stuff. Me, I'm general assignment reporter, so I'm all over the map and used to cover entertainment and all that. So my feed's a mixed bag of craziness. It's my garden, my pup. But yeah, the main spot, our Substack, askapoll.com. Subscribe. You can subscribe for free. Right now, we actually have a 50% off for life. So if you're feeling not even flush, but if you got a little love in your heart for us journalists, please subscribe to us. There's paid subscriptions. Right now we have 50% off sale for life. I think that makes it only like $4 a month. Yeah, any support we get, but the main thing is keep sending us your thoughts, your questions. Yeah, we're nothing without you. The people, which this fucking town has forgotten.
Yeah.
This policy is supposed to be people. I'm just trying to remind your lawmakers that every fucking day that they're in town, which is not enough.
I love that. Hey, man, you are on fire. You're like the timber shed of journalists. I think this is great. Well, Matt, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see or to hear what happens when you finally corner Mike Turner with your Lockheed Martin baseball cap and a big ass wad of cash. He's going to talk. I guarantee it. Anyway, man, thanks for joining us. And everyone, thanks for joining us on the Good Trouble Show. See you soon.